Welcome back to another edition of the Mental Dimes podcast. We're here yet again, gentlemen. Me, the coach, and Phil. We had some decent games in college over the weekend. The NFL was a little bit, not that great. And now we're here. So how are you guys feeling? Coach wearing a Syracuse Donovan McNabb jersey yet again. They pulled off a shocker, according to me and Phil, last weekend with Liberty. Coach, you must feel pretty good there.
I feel great. I mean, once again, we don't get respected. Liberty, arguably, you can make a case they should have been ranked. We played a good took care of business, got to win. Beat a Heisman
getting
favorite.
Respect in a very open ACC conference, mind you. Honestly,
very trash ACC conference.
It's coming.
Yeah, I wouldn't count them out. I wouldn't count them out just yet. Maybe, but that is a perfect introduction to our NCAA football questions of the week. The majority of them will go to our resident senior, Phil. His Auburn Tigers went through damn, that one was odd against Georgia State. They were down for quite a while. It seemed like every time I was checking the score, waiting for my Mountaineers to play Oklahoma, it was just not in your favor there with the Auburn Tigers.
A block punt and then things go your way.
Yeah. Got lucky there with the special teams, but we'll jump right into it. Auburn did play this team just 2 weeks ago, the Penn State Nittany Lions. They made a large move in the top 25 over the weekend. They jumped Iowa. The Iowa Hawkeyes had been ahead. Now Penn State is number 4 and Iowa is number 5. Both teams undefeated. They do not play each other this weekend, first weekend in October. They play each other the 9th of October, looking at my calendar. The 9th of October, you have a Big Ten showdown between Penn State and Iowa. But, Phil, that's my question. Are they, Penn State and Iowa, are they the top 2 contenders in the Big Ten, or are you looking at another team in the field right now?
No, I first of all, I want to start by giving Coach credit. He's been on the Penn State bandwagon since before we started. I was talking with somebody about that today, and they called me a liar, and I told him to check out the podcast. I gave him the credit. You know, he's on the Penn State bandwagon. And after they beat Auburn, I'm still kind of iffy, but I went back and I've kind of looked at them some more, and I think it's time to give Penn State a little respect. And I think when game day is at Penn State, Iowa next week, which surely they will be, that the team that wins that will probably win that conference.
I think you're right. I think that's not a bold statement to make. Coach, of course, yeah, Coach, we got to give you credit here. You've had the Nittany Lions in your CFP since July, when I made the questionable call of putting North Carolina in my CFP. They lost to Georgia Tech, their second loss already. They're out. I'm already predicting that Sam Howell comes back for another season in college under Mac Brown. I think it's just his best interest. But, Coach, you've had them in your CFP. We got to give you credit there. We're not going to ask for a comment here because we already get it enough with your game picks. We already have to hear you gloat enough, so we'll leave it at that. But real quick, looking at Penn State's upcoming schedule. Yes, they play Iowa next week at Iowa. Then at the end of October on the 30th, they play in Columbus at the Horseshoe against Ohio State. Then mid-November, before Thanksgiving, they get to host Michigan. The Wolverines having one of their best years in a long time under Harbaugh. And then to finish out the year, they get to go to East Lansing and take on Michigan State. So Penn State clearly having a gauntlet of a schedule. You have a nice game this weekend against Indiana. Michael Penix Jr., quarterback, not a bad game to watch. And so they have a gauntlet. They're going to be facing some very difficult opponents in this Big Ten slate. Not a shock at all. Iowa does play at Maryland on Friday night. That's not a wash. Tua Tagovailoa's brother, Talia, is at quarterback for Maryland. He's played a great job so far this year. And they get to host Minnesota later on this season. It could have been a game to circle, not to circle anymore. They get to go to Nebraska at the end. They play Wisconsin on the road in November. At the end of October as well. But so both teams having gauntlets of schedules in the Big Ten. It's not going to be a shock if the winner of that game in 2 weeks is the winner of the conference. But moving on to a conference that probably
been tested early.
They have been tested early. Penn State played Wisconsin. We're not sure how Wisconsin is. Penn State also played Auburn. Both games, close, tight games. And then Iowa has had its test against Iowa State, and they looked very good. But let's go to a conference that's not, maybe not, right now does not have a team in the CFP, shockingly. That's the ACC. It could have been North Carolina. It could have been Clemson. It could have been Virginia Tech. All three teams are terrible. North Carolina and Virginia Tech are out of the top 25. Clemson is on the cusp. First time they've been out of the top 10 in over 70 weeks. Coach, does your conference with your Syracuse Orangemen, does it still have a chance to make the college football playoff?
I think they have a chance. And you, like I said, you guys made fun of me hardcore on the Penn State thing earlier. And so
We're not talking about that anymore.
Y'all gonna make fun of me really big, but I'm very serious when I make this next comment. Don't be shocked if Syracuse somehow, some way wins the ACC. But let me tell you why. We play Clemson at home on a Friday night. Syracuse ain't lost a home game on a Friday night in about 16, 17 years. Clemson's at home on a Friday night. Then you also got Wake Forest and BC, both up there in your house. I'm just saying, don't be surprised. I'm just saying here first. But to answer your question, Chuck, I think the only way the ACC can get a team in the college football playoffs is if Oregon does not run the table. I think if Oregon runs the table, they're obviously going to solidify a spot in the top four. This may be the deepest I've ever seen the SEC talking about that. So I don't see how you can't get two SEC teams in right now because it's so deep. And they're good. I mean, we've seen it. Scores are showing it. The SEC's got to get two. And then I just don't see how the Big Ten champion, or maybe not even the champion, depending on how the Penn State, all that things can shake out. But I'm going to say Big Ten gets one, SEC gets two. And if Oregon can run the table, I think Oregon gets that fourth spot. If Oregon somehow slips up, ACC maybe, depending on if it's a one-loss team sneaking in, or if somehow those donkers like Wake Forest or Boston College go undefeated. But that's the only way the ACC gets one, I think.
I think you're right. Oregon definitely has a lock now on that spot as long as it doesn't beat itself up. And you can't.
It's theirs to lose.
It is theirs to lose. It is, in fact, theirs to lose. It is the same way it was 2 years ago when they lost late with Justin Herbert against Arizona State. That was probably they were going to make it by the end of the season. How it all shook out, they probably would have made it, but they lost that game in Tempe to the Arizona State Sun Devils. So that was a rough ending. But right now, yes, it is theirs to lose. Pac-12 has a legitimate contender right now, at least for a playoff spot in Oregon. And then you got to look at the non-Power 5, Cincinnati, with a major test this weekend against Notre Dame, and they are still right there in the hunt at number 7. They're a really good team. They are a very competitive team, and that's a great little segue to finish up our college football talk as well. Let's talk about Notre Dame very briefly. Phil, I'm going to send this one to you to wrap it up before we go to pro football. Wisconsin lost to Notre Dame. It wasn't just a loss; it was a shellacking by the Irish.
It was close for a while.
It was close for a while, but by the end,
it was 10-10 in the fourth.
It was a very good game, but you could tell by the end the superior team was Notre Dame. They finally woke up, and Graham Mertz just a colossal failure at quarterback right now for Wisconsin. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the head coach of the Notre Dame Irish, the Brian Kelly, who coached at Cincinnati. They get to host the Bearcats this weekend in South Bend. He now is the winningest coach in the history of Notre Dame football, past the great Newt Rockne on Saturday for most all-time wins, over 100 wins. Where do you rank him, very quickly, where do you rank him in coaching trees in college football history?
I mean, he's got to be up there. I didn't realize he'd been there that long, since 2010. 145 wins at Notre Dame, 220 all time. I mean, you start talking about guys that have won over 200 games. That's a very, very select group. You got to coach a long time to do that. He's on year 18. You know, he's been around. He's won a lot of ball games, and I've never been a real big Notre Dame fan, but he just keeps hanging around. Every year they're winning 8, 9 ball games. Year in, year out, he's producing. He's a good recruiter. He does a good job at Notre Dame. So he's got to be one of the top 5 coaches in college football right now.
Right now, currently coaching top 5.
Right now, top 5.
Currently coaching, I think he's easily top 5.
Yeah, top 5.
I was going to say top 3 right now.
Yeah, easily top 5, top 3 college coach right now in today's game. I have to agree with you with that. All time, I don't know. He doesn't finish it up in the bowl games. He's brought them a couple national title contending teams, but that's all they ever are. But he is still a very good coach. And Notre Dame looks pretty good. I was not sold on the Irish. I did pick Wisconsin.
Still not.
Still not sold just yet. That Cincinnati game on Saturday will tell me a lot about both teams. It'll tell me if Luke Fickell has that kind of team with Cincinnati. It'll tell me if the Irish are back yet again in Notre Dame. It really tell us a lot about those two teams. Two playoff contenders right now, by the way, not just Oregon. They are both contenders as well, being an independent and a non-Power 5. But let's move on. Sorry, Coach.
They could really screw up the playoffs if they were to find a way to run the table.
Oh,
they could really make stuff just messed up bad.
Does it really mess it up now, though, since there's not an ACC since Clemson's out? I mean, they just take Clemson's spot.
It's back to if Oregon runs the table.
Well, if Georgia doesn't lose until the SEC championship game, I mean, and Alabama handles its business, you got two SEC teams right there.
Oklahoma's struggling.
Oklahoma, I never had Oklahoma, after about their second game. I forget who the hell they played, but their first game was not great. And then the Nebraska game was close. I don't like Oklahoma. Even though we played them pretty close, I wasn't convinced with our performance based on the offense, but I'm not sold on Oklahoma all that much. Really, really don't look good. But let's wrap up our college football talk. Let's take a shift over to the NFL. This is Coach's stomping grounds. He wanted the most questions in this segment. We're going to start it off. We're going to hit it close to home for me. My quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, Coach, the Steelers lost to the Bengals 24-10. The game was awful. One of the worst. Now 1-2, just horrible. Is it time? Is it finally time to take him out? Is it time to go to Mason Rudolph, deal with it, cut your losses, try and draft a quarterback in the spring? What do you think?
I think Big Ben's catching a bad break just because Tom Brady's doing so well. I think by Tom Brady doing so well as he's aging, it's making Big Ben just look like he's awful. Hey, let me finish. But my opinion is I'm not sure if you're Mike Tomlin, who you go to. I know you got Mason Rudolph, you got Dwayne Haskins, but if Mason Rudolph was that good, he would be playing right now. He had his chance, and he really did not look good at all. And it ain't like he's a rookie. This is, I believe, year 4, year 5, if I'm correct. The last quarterback they drafted. Is it time to move on from Big Ben? There's a good chance. I mean, the thing that a lot of people don't realize, though, is they have the worst running team in the NFL right now. They have the fewest rushing yards per game of any team. So they're not doing a good job by helping him out. And I don't know the Steelers well enough to know if that's an offensive line problem.
Yes.
Or if obviously it's Najee Harris. He's a rookie. So, I mean, he's got to develop. It ain't just something you're going to walk out here and just be running over people, especially in the NFL. So there's a lot more issues than just Big Ben. But as far as the face of the franchise, there's some good quarterbacks coming in the draft that could be a potential. I mean, I'm kind of riding Maynard's trail here. You got Matt Corral coming. I mean, why not let him or who's the guy? Malik Willis at Liberty. You got Spencer Rattler. I don't know if his game will carry over.
He's a sophomore too, by the way.
Who's that?
Spencer Rattler. He's got a whole nother year.
All right. Sam Howell, if he decides to come. There's some good quarterbacks coming. So I'm not saying it's time, but I don't think you give up on him right now in the middle of the year.
No, I can kind of agree on that. I think you definitely you say a prayer that you're happy that you made that deal in the offseason, that you only have him for the 1 year. I will answer your question. It's an offensive line thing. Najee Harris, Pittsburgh hasn't given him the ball a lot, but when he's gotten the ball, he's made some moves. He caught 19 passes yesterday. They actually threw him the ball a lot. And so I think it is definitely a large portion of the problems with the run game are on the offensive line. It's also led to Ben being sacked a lot, which he's only sacked 4 times all of last year. He's already been sacked, I think, 6 or 7 times now, and we're through 3 games. So the offensive line definitely has to mature a little bit. You have Dan Moore, rookie left tackle. You have Kendra Green, a rookie center. You have an unqualified starting offensive lineman in Okorafor. You're kind of stuck with what you got for a little while. You need to develop. But no, yeah, I think you're right on Ben. He just kind of hangs tight for a while.
And let's not overlook, they did beat the Bills week 1. I mean, it ain't like they're just terrible. They're not like the Jets right now. And it's still anybody's division. It's early on. I say let it ride for now.
It's still early, boys.
It is early. But Phil, we'll go to you here with the Chiefs now. Is it too early for the Chiefs, or are we ready to start looking elsewhere? The Chiefs have now lost back-to-back games. They were the majority favorite of many fans heading into this season in the AFC, along with the Buffalo Bills. So now with the Chiefs losing back-to-back, The Bills have won 2 straight. They looked dominant against Washington. Now 2-1, put up 43 points. Josh Allen, 5 total touchdowns. Now, are you taking the Bills or the Chiefs, or do you look towards the field in the AFC? Do you look towards the Ravens? Do you look towards the Browns? Phil, who are you going with right now in the AFC?
It's not time to panic for the Chiefs. They have a rebuilt offensive line. You know, everybody's new there, so they're still kind of getting their groove there. Mahomes he's still going to sling it around. His horses are going to be okay at the end of the day. You know, we know where the ball is going to go for him. There's 2 guys, and the ball's going to go there, and we all know who they are. They got to have a little bit of a running game here and there just to help them out. The defense is going to be okay with the Honey Badger on the back end. It's too early to freak out. I mean, we're 3 games in. We're 3 weeks into my fantasy football league. I'm 2-1. There's no need for me to freak out. There's no need for the Chiefs to freak out. It's all going to be okay. Now we're in week 10 and they're having problems, then we'll talk. But let's not freak out. Just take a deep breath. Mahomes is going to be okay. He's getting paid too much money to suck. So
I like those points. I like that you made that point about your fantasy team. I lost this week in fantasy to our guest picker, by the way, on top of everything else. So way to rub salt in the wound there, Behringer, on that booking. Nice job. Nice job. Deion Sanders wasn't available this week. We had to go with this guy. Coming up. Thanks. But let's wrap up our NFL discussion here to get to those game picks with our guest picker. The Panthers are now 3-0. Last time they did this, they made a Super Bowl appearance both in 2015 and 2003. Are they going to do it again? And is it going to be with quarterback Sam Darnold, the guy that a lot of people wrote off when he went to the Jets, years with the Jets? Last year, his first year in the Matt Rule system, former Baylor head coach, mind you. Is it going to be another Cinderella run by the Panthers in a very down NFC South, mind you? Coach, what are your thoughts?
Number one, they're in there with the Bucks, so definitely I'm not going to say it's a down division right now, but I thought the Jets really screwed up by getting rid of Darnold. They were expecting him to be really good with a 67-year-old Pawpaw Frank Gore in the backfield running for him, and I have no idea who their receivers are, and they're still not even there. So they were putting so much expectation on the Jets and Darnold to win that he was just unable to fill those shoes. But Darnold's a good quarterback. He had a good college career. He was drafted high. So I like him. I thought it was a good move by the Panthers to get him. That being said, I don't think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. I think they're a lock for the playoffs just because you look, and if you get 10 wins, you're usually in. You've already got 3. They still got 2 more with the Falcons, Giants, and Washington. So I think they're going to get in the playoffs, no doubt. But I think the NFC is just too loaded for them to make a run. It's going to be impossible. You got to go through Brady. You go through the Rams. You got to go through the Seahawks. It's going to be too much to get to the Super Bowl, but I do think they get there.
They're a competitive team right now. I guess you're right about the NFC South. I kind of get distracted with the Atlanta Falcons and the Saints.
It's definitely easy to let the Falcons ruin your conference.
Yeah, and the Saints are a little bit, iffy right now, but I understand what you're saying with Darnold. I've never been a fan of Sam Darnold. I've never really liked him even when he was at USC. So it'll take a time to convince me.
He's still good.
Otherwise.
I mean, he's still good.
He's not bad. He's not bad. Well, gentlemen, that wraps up our discussion points. We now shift over to our guest picker, Foster, from our fantasy football league. He is on to pick our games, and should be interesting. We'll have to see how it goes. Now we start our game picks segment of the show. We have a very special guest on, not a special guest to me because I lost him in fantasy, but we'll put that aside. Foster, he has joined us. Welcome to the podcast, our guest football picker. How do you feel? Are you confident at least?
Guys, I'm 100% confident. I've been dominating some college pick'em this week. Actually, no, I lost a lot on college pick'em. I'm pretty confident. I'm excited about this. I've been waiting on this opportunity to get on here now. This is great.
Well, we told Coach that you could come on 3 weeks ago. He said, hell no. We're like, well,
that's
definitely not.
Right. Well, I've been declined twice already. So,
He doesn't want anyone to compete with
Boeheim.
his game picks.
Yeah.
Coach is very, very protective over his game picks record. But we'll get it going here. Our previous guest, Ryan Trammell, went 6-2. So, Foster, you have some major ground to make up here to try and one-up him and take over the number 1 spot in our podcast right now. It isn't hard to pass me and Phil. We don't do very well.
We
went 4-4.
I'm 500.
Yeah, we went 4-4 last week. We did okay, and then you are. Yeah, I'm 2 games below 500, and then coach is just. I don't know what he's doing to get these numbers, but it's not. I don't think it's accurate. But we'll get it going here. We'll start college. We have a big one in the Big Ten yet again. This time it's number 14 Michigan at Wisconsin. The Badgers coming off a very difficult loss to Notre Dame. Michigan coming off a big win against Rutgers. Had to hang on there late. Phil, we'll start off with you. Who are you going with there?
I want to open with these Big Ten games are kicking my butt so far. This is why I'm struggling here. But I got Michigan, old school Michigan football. They're running the football 290 yards a game, six yards a carry right now. They're running the football and playing defense. I got Michigan and Harbaugh kind of turning it around, and Michigan heading in the right direction.
Coach.
Wisconsin made me look like a fool last week, even though they're the underdogs, they're favored. I ain't picking them. I don't care if they're playing Georgia State. I'm not picking Wisconsin ever again. I'm going with Michigan.
Okay. God. Foster, your first guest pick, Michigan or Wisconsin?
Gosh, Wisconsin was my 10-point pick last week, and it was my big dog pick, and they let me down. So screw Wisconsin.
That's what I'm talking about.
Go Michigan.
I'm sick and tired of Jim Harbaugh, but I got to go with Michigan. They should have fired him 2 years ago. They haven't, but can't go with Wisconsin. I have the same level of hate that coach does. Now let's shift over SEC. It's a major one. We have 2 major SEC battles. We're picking them both. This is the first. Number 12, Ole Miss. Maynard's quarterback, Matt Corral, there at number 1, Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Coach, you going with boy wonder quarterback and the Rebels, or are you going to go with the old dog and Saban in Alabama?
I'm going to give credit to Maynard. Maynard called this in the season. They're following through. They look really good. This is a scary game for Bama. There's no doubt about it. But the proteges are winless against Saban. I think Ole Miss covers the spread, but I'm going to ride with Saban in the Tide.
Phil?
Well, I just got off the phone before we started with Lane. He's doing his job in the media, telling us that Alabama has no holes. But guess what? Lane does have the best quarterback in college football in Matt Corral. And I've been on this one all day. I've been looking at it. Foster come to my room. He said, "Who are you going to pick?" I didn't tell him, but I've talked myself into it. I'm sticking true. My Ole Miss Rebels, the upset, baby.
There you go.
Okay. Foster, your second pick here, sir.
Son, let me smell your breath, because that is the worst pick I've ever heard. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now. We was talking a story about Lane the other day. Saban left Lane. Lane was late to practice. Lane was late for game. He can't get ready for Alabama. I'm telling you right now, Alabama dominates this game. Bryce Young throws up some big numbers. Robinson's healthy this week, coming off his injury. It's going to be big Bama win. It's going to be close.
We'll bet dinner on this later, Foster.
Okay.
I was going to go with Ole Miss. I was going to go with Matt Corral. I had faith in Maynard, but we need to differentiate our picks because he just copies my picks each week. So we got to change it up a bit. I got to go with Alabama. I'm not going to go against. I'm not going to go against.
See who I picked, Chuck.
What's that?
Just waiting to see. Was you just waiting to see who I picked?
Yes.
Yeah. I
know Maynard's 500.
I'm going Alabama. I'm going with Alabama. Moving on. Number 7, Cincinnati at number 9, Notre Dame. The Irish, can they stand another test? Coach, do you believe in Brian Kelly, the winningest coach in Notre Dame football history now?
I think that Brian Kelly has done a phenomenal job of making his team feel like it's them against the world. It's always been like that, and realistically every year. But for some reason this year, it's just different.
They conveniently forget every offseason that it's just them against the world.
I agree, but this year it's different, and you guys have to admit that if you want to. But I'm gonna ride Notre Dame right here. It's just something different, and so I'm gonna roll with them.
Phil,
that was loud. I pick against Notre Dame every week on this show. I feel like every week I'm like, no, Notre Dame. I hate Notre Dame. I hate Notre Dame. But I've talked myself into it this week. Before we started, I'm going to pick Notre Dame. So that means they'll probably lose. So I'm picking Notre Dame.
All right, Foster.
Well, since he's putting up big numbers, but they haven't played anybody. I'm going Notre Dame, like the Irish. I don't even know if it'll be close. I like Notre Dame here.
I can't pick for a future Big 12 rival. I got to go with the Irish. I don't like Brian Kelly that much anymore, but got to go with Notre Dame. Into the Big 12, number 21 Baylor at number 19 Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State coming off a huge upset over Kansas State. Baylor, an even bigger one over Iowa State. Coach, you going with the Pokes in Stillwater, or you going with the Bears?
I just want to know how Oklahoma State is in the Big 12. They beat a ranked opponent last week. They're still undefeated, and they're only ranked 19th. They're behind a one-loss Fresno State team and Michigan freaking State. I don't get that. They're not getting any love. They're not getting any respect. The Gundies are going to get this one.
Interesting call, Phil.
I said it last week. I'm on the Oklahoma State bandwagon right now. One of the toughest places to play in the country. I still believe in a little bitty tight. You got the guys beating on the paddles. That's one of the things I want to do. It's on my bucket list. Spencer Sanders, 344 yards last week, throwing it around like Gundy wants to play. I got Oklahoma State winning again.
My Lord. Phil goes with Oklahoma State. Foster, you riding on the train?
I back about 10 years ago or 20 years ago, whenever it was, my first bowl game was when I went and watched Alabama play Oklahoma State in Shreveport. And let me tell you what, those guns going up, and it just didn't do nothing for me. I like Joe Kynes, and Joe Kynes did an amazing job that day. And I'm going with Baylor. They're putting up some numbers. They're passing yards. I like Baylor.
I was convinced of Baylor on the weekend against Iowa State. Oklahoma State has been a sneaky team in the Big 12 since the end of last season. I'm going with Baylor. I got to go with Foster here. I'm going with Baylor.
No respect.
They're going on the road. They're going on the road. They have
No
a hideous
respect.
orange. Any team with an orange color in their colors, they have to suck. So, my bad. Wait, what's the name of your mascot? The Orangeman?
Yeah.
Damn.
How many wins West Virginia got?
Darn. Two.
Oh, my bad.
Two.
I'm sorry. I think we got 3, but
Two hard-fought wins. Okay, all right. Let's wrap up our college football picks here. We have a doozy, another SEC. When I said we get to it, we're here. Number 8, Arkansas, the Razorbacks. At number 2, Georgia in Athens. They might get Archie Manning if they win this one. Phil, who you rolling with here?
I think Archie Manning committed to Alabama. But sorry, I got Georgia. They're getting healthy. They got Washington coming back at tight end this week. They got Smith coming back at safety. Pickens is going to be back maybe this week or the next. I got Georgia. The offense is going to start rolling a little bit. Defense is still going to stop everybody.
Coach, who you going with?
I tried to look this up. I didn't find ever that where there was such a big spread for a top 10 matchup. 18.5 points. That's a lot of points. Both offenses are really good. Arkansas is really surprising, but I think this might be one of the best Georgia teams Kirby Smart's ever had. So I'm gonna ride with the Bulldogs.
Foster, you gonna go 5-0 on your game picks here in college?
Let me tell you, my wife's a big Georgia fan. Graduated from Auburn. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
That's
But let me go ahead and tell you right now, I really like the Dogs. I like what Kirby's doing down there. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be knock some Arkansas down to where they're supposed to be. Back about 3 down in the West.
Runs over.
Over.
It's too bad Arkansas really showed me a lot with that win against A&M over the weekend, but I already picked one questionable one going with Baylor on the road. I'm not going to go with another road upset.
I just thought you were going to
ride
pick
my
them.
picks,
I thought you had
Chuck.
Arkansas. You were shaking your head and nodding your head. I was like, here he comes. He's going to
I hate
Those
Kirby
facial
Smart.
expressions.
I hate Kirby Smart. I think he's a joke as a coach. I don't think he gets stuff done, but
joke.
We'll go with Georgia. Moving on to the NFL before I have to answer for that statement here. Let's get going here. Browns at Vikings. Browns look pretty dominant against I don't even know who they played over the weekend because that's not a real NFL team in the Bears. Browns, Vikings. Coach, kick us off. You're our NFL guy. Who do you like?
Both teams score a lot of points, but there's just something about the Vikings that I really like this year. They just got so many weapons. They had a great win last week against Seattle. I'm going with Purple People Eaters. They get 2 in a row.
Goodness gracious, Phil.
I got Trammell's Browns. Trammell's Browns coming back, winning another one. They can run the ball. They play enough defense. Baker's getting better play action game. I like Baker and the Browns.
Foster, we're making a shift here to professional football. Who you going with?
Yeah, here we go. I got the Browns. I like Baker. I wanted to draft him. Wasn't there. So, whatever. Go Browns.
Okay. I got to go with the Browns. I hate my division because it's really competitive, but I got to go with Cleveland. They look good. I think Coach is going to be straining out there picking Vikings. Not a good one there, Coach. Cardinals, Rams, NFC West battle, both 3-0. Rams coming off a huge win against Tampa Bay. Phil, who you like in here? Matt Stafford?
I like the Cardinals.
Ooh.
I'm taking the Cardinals. I like the way they play. I like the way Murray runs around back there, throws the ball around. I didn't realize AJ Green was still in the league. Apparently, he had hit over 100 yards this week for him. Who knew he was still around? Was it AJ? Did I make that up?
Maybe.
No, you're right.
No, you're right. I'm shocked.
You're right.
Chuck questioned me there.
No, I'm just completely shocked.
102 yards. AJ Green didn't know he was still in the league. I got the Cardinals.
Dally gum, Coach.
I mean, it's hard to argue. The Cardinals are leading the league in points scored and yards per game. So, I mean, it's not a terrible pick. But they've not played Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. So, but obviously both teams can score a lot of points. But the Rams defense, they showed they could. I mean, they're good. Like, the Rams are good. I'm going to ride the train, get on the Rams. I'm going to follow Matthew Stafford.
Foster.
I like Stafford and the Rams in this game. Can't go for another Oklahoma guy. So let's go Rams.
Yeah, nothing else needs to be said. I got to go with the Rams. Coach said more than enough about that defense for me. LA Rams over the Cardinals. To wrap up our picks, Buccaneers at the Patriots. Tom Brady going back to his old stomping grounds. Phil, who you rolling with here?
Do you really think Brady's going to go back there and lose? It's not going to happen. You know, the guy's had a chip on his shoulder his entire career. You think he's going to have a little extra big chip this week? The team that he won all the games for that didn't want him to come back because he was too old and didn't want to pay him the money. I got Brady by a bunch.
Coach?
I think good players trump good coaches. I think we talked about that about 2 months ago.
Yep.
I'm not sure which one of them's got the meeting with the devil first, but either him or Bill. One of them's fixing to sell their soul to make sure they get the win this weekend. But I think Tom gets a win, and I think he gives Bill a Subway sandwich from his commercial he shot after the game.
Foster, is this the 8-0 pick here as our guest picker? Do you take top spot? Who you rolling with?
Buddy, anybody that cuts Cam Newton, I'm going with them. Go Patriots. I tell you what, I hate Cam Newton, and Bill Belichick cut him, so let's go Patriots.
And I will say, if anybody's going to know how to stop Tom Brady, it's going to be somebody that spent that much time with him. I don't think it does, but I am anxious to see what kind of defense that Bill throws at him.
Yeah.
It will be different. I'm not going with the Patriots. I got to go with Tom Brady. He's going into Foxborough. Redemption time. Got to go with Tampa Bay. Gentlemen, those are our picks. They are locked in. I hope Coach was taking them down because I wasn't. And I hope they aren't going to be tampered with here in the next 30, 40 hours before the graphic goes out on our Instagram and our Twitter. So hopefully he doesn't mess them up. Coach Phil Foster, our guest picker. Those are our picks. Those are our games. How you guys feeling?
I feel good. I'm on top of the leaderboard. I ain't got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, you could go 0-8 and still be pretty comfortable.
Wait, Badger, what's your fantasy record?
Oh yeah. Touch on that real quick.
Well, I would. While we have Foster on the air, I would like to, Foster, for you to give us a second-by-second synopsis of draft night. I was sitting there beside you. We were looking at the draft board, and the pick was in for the number 1 overall pick. Well, and I remember hearing Titans defense and looking over it, and I couldn't tell. You were wagging your legs and your eyes were big, and you about fell out of your chair because you couldn't get up there quick enough to get McCaffrey before he changed his mind. Walk us through that moment.
Well, that moment was eerie. You know, it was he threw in the Tennessee Titans, and immediately I was like a kid at a candy store, except I couldn't reach the board. So, you know, I had to get somebody to put it up there on the board for me. But let me tell you, he's injured now. So that just shows you, you know, how much faith, you know, I have in CMC right now. He's out for a couple of weeks. So
he's out, but you still won.
I still won.
I plugged the holes, Foster. Plug them holes.
Plug them holes.
Justin Herbert had a career day and put up 30 fantasy points.
Hey, the fact that I almost put Devontae in for Jamal Chase, I had a heart feeling Jamal's going to have a good weekend, and boy, he put up some big numbers too. So,
Well, Foster, we thank you for coming on. You are our second guest of the year. Could be our undefeated, could be 7-1, takes the lead at the top of the leaderboards. Coach Phil, I'll see you both next week after I go 8-0 in my picks. Phil is I guess we didn't do the exact same picks this week, but they're similar. Shocker there. Not too surprised. But gentlemen, I'll see you next time.
thank you guys.